My name is Claire Clark. I'm the founder of the Claire Clark Academy here at Milton Keynes College. And today I'm going to show you how to make chocolate glacage. First, we're going to take the cream. I'm using double cream. We're going to put that into a pan. Now, the reason we're using double cream is because it has a slightly higher fat content than the other creams, which is very important for our glaze. I'm going to be adding a combination of simple syrup and water. That goes into the pan. Nappage. This is just a neutral glaze. This will actually be the foundation of our glaze, so that's going into the pan. Some sugar. And we're going to bring that to the boil. So we just put that over a medium heat. We don't want it to come to the boil before it's all melted. It's quite important that we don't over aerate the glaze, otherwise it'll have a lot of bubbles in at the end. So we're just going to gently, not really whisk it, but just break it up while it comes to the boil. While that's boiling, I'm going to take a bowl, and into the bowl I'm going to put some cocoa powder. This just gives a really dark, rich colour to your glaze that the chocolate won't give alone. I've my chocolate here. Now I'm using a 55% dark chocolate, but you can use anything up to a 70% depending on the flavour that you want for your glacage. So I've got my cocoa powder and my water, and I'm going to add those together to make a paste. So we're just going to add the water a little at a time, whisking as we go until we form a nice smooth paste. Now if I try to add this directly to my cream and my nappage and everything else in the pan, it would just be really lumpy. So that's the point of doing this separately. So whisk those together till it's nice and smooth. So we'll just turn that up a little bit, and then we're going to bloom our gelatin. So for blooming the gelatin, we're going to need cold water. Now it needs to be cold, and if you haven't got really cold water, you can add some ice to it. Otherwise the gelatin will begin to melt before it's dissolved. And we want it just to dissolve. That's what we mean by bloom. So we're making sure that's completely immersed into the cold water. So we have all the three ingredients ready that we need to go into our pan. Our gelatin that's blooming, our couverture, and our cocoa powder and water mix. I'm going to turn this up a little bit. So while this is coming to the boil, I'll just explain to you a little bit about couverture and the different percentages there are available on the market and why we use different percentages for different things. So it's really about the amount of cocoa solids that are in the chocolate. That's what the percentage refers to. That determines the depth and the flavour and the quality of the chocolate. So if you have something that's 70%, which is a good high percentage of chocolate, that after that, 75, 80% absolutely excellent chocolates, but they tend to get a little bit on the bitter side. Not bitter nasty, just a little bit bitter where they have different uses. So 70% would be a good place to start for a very nice, rich chocolate. And anything below that's fine. I'm using a 55, that's great. That's what we would call a more generic chocolate, has all sorts of different uses. You can also go, once you've gone from your percentages, when you start to go from dark chocolate into milk chocolate and white chocolate, you'll find that those percentages will drop down because they have more additives. So in the case of white chocolate, you would have a lower percentage, somewhere around sort of 20 to 30% cocoa solids, and then you would have additions of cocoa butter, sugar, vanilla, flavourings, etc., etc. And milk would be sort of 35 to 40, and again you have other additives, so that's why they're slightly lower than a dark chocolate. Myself, I have used many chocolates over the years. I particularly like Amade, which is a very expensive chocolate, but it's expensive for a reason. The reason being that a lot of their chocolates are single plantation, which means they come from a single area and they only grow that type of chocolate in cocoa beans in that area, and they're very, very small quantities where the beans are harvested by independent farmers, and so you normally pay an extra price for that. However, we're sponsored here by Cacao Barry at the Academy, and they have many single plantation and other generic chocolates where if it's not a single plantation, the beans will be brought in from different places, different countries, and mixed to define the flavour, the character of the chocolate. Also, Valrhona is a very big manufacturer of chocolate, which is distributed throughout the world, and they very much have, in the last few years, developed lots of different types of chocolate with flavourings in, like the Caramelea, which has a caramel flavour, and Dolce, which is a white chocolate that's been caramelised, and they can be used in certain pastry dishes or creative dishes where you want that particular flavour. All beans are determined flavour-wise from their origin, so where they're grown and the environment that they're growing, that will determine their overall flavour. Okay, let's look at our glaze here. It's coming down to boil. I'm just stirring really gently. I just want that nappage to completely melt before I okay, that's not quite melted, but it's melted enough that I'm going to pour a little bit onto my cocoa powder. I'm going to mix gently now that I've got that in, and I'm going to return it to the pan. There we go. Now I'm going to bring that to the boil with all of that in it. I'm going to take my gelatin from the cold water. I'm going to squeeze it out and just set it aside. Once this has come to the boil, I'm going to add the gelatin into the pan, off the heat, and then I'm going to add the chocolate to it as well. So it's just coming to the boil now. I'm going to remove it from the heat, add the gelatin, and again, just gently mix it. Let that completely dissolve, and then add the chocolate. Now the chocolate should be either finely chopped if it comes in block or in pistil form. And my pistils, as you can see, are quite small, but some of them come in sort of 5 grams, 2 to 5 grams, and they're a little bit bigger. You'd be benefiting yourself and your work to chop those as well. We just want it to melt as quickly as possible into the other ingredients. So we're just going to stir that gently. Until it's completely mixed and dissolved. And then I'm going to pass it through a fine chinois to remove any lumps from the glaze. So we pass that through the fine chinois. All of that going in, even those little bits there. And then push it through. Making sure I'm pushing through all of that in the pan, as in the sieve as well. Okay. And that's our glaze. Now we do need to let it get to the right temperature to use it. We can't use it straight away. It'll be too hot and it will melt the mousse or the cake or the buttercream or anything that we're using it for to glaze. So the ideal temperature is going to be around sort of 34 to 35 degrees centigrade. So we're going to let that cool. As it cools, we will be gently stirring it, just making sure that it cools nice and evenly.